this is kind of, how we have done panels in the past, and it, of course, will be a bit chaotic. For the audience, there is a Q&A panel where you please ask your questions. That's my preferred source of questions, which I will address to the audience, which is now here online. And there's also a chat, which I will react to if there's no questions. Andre has, and this is like a new thing this evening, that his kid needs to go somewhere, or he needs to get them from somewhere. So if Andre needs to leave and drops out, that's okay. And so if you have any questions about Andre's talk, we might want to do that now. He's
or forever hold your peace.
Yeah.
If there are no questions, I have a question I've been dying to ask Andre since your 2019 CPP Con keynotes. I guess it really talks to the different levels that you've talked about and where you kind of hit it right out of the park. So it was the moment when you played a joke with the live transcriber person, when you ran down and faked that Kate had told you off, and that really you had meant to say shed load instead of shitload. And I thought...
No, I never meant to say that.
You never meant to say that, and then your next slide was a picture of a shed, which kind of gave the game away, that it was this phenomenally intricate, very, very subtle, very clever. And that was the point at which I realized just how far there was to go in terms of being a keynote speaker. Can you tell us anything about the behind the scenes? Or, I mean, I did afterwards have a point with the transcriber, and she actually showed me what she saw, what she heard. And I think she said, he's playing with me, right, isn't he? It was just such a magical moment. I guess my question is, can you reveal anything about the behind the scenes and how you finessed it so well?
I only spoke with Kate, so Kate was part of it. The transcriber was not, and I was very happy that she took it so much in stride and tweeted about it and everything. So that was luck. So the transcriber part was luck. And I always think of kind of just to generalize this a bit. I think it's very important to have a strong opening. I was alluding to these studies about the first 30 seconds, and it's just amazing. Like, people, like, when they say, oh, he gave me the look, or she gave me the look, or somebody gave me the look, or whatever, like they give like this clear information that there's an interest, or some romantic sort of some friendship or respect or whatever. That doesn't come after like half an hour. No, it comes after half a minute. So it comes within the first like seconds of getting to know someone in any capacity. There's a very strong impression forming, and that's gonna just last. And if you manage to do something like really like engaging within those initial seconds, that's very. So I have another talk in which I'm not sure you've seen that. I put like a slide with like very complicated assembler on the like my first slide is like just a weird assembler code, like, oh, what does this do? It's a famous algorithm, and it's like random assembler, like doesn't do anything at all of any interest to anyone. But it's just like people like, oh, what is that? Is that sorting? Is that what's happening there? So you gotta capture people's interest in some way. That's gonna be they're gonna feel engaged, and I gotta be here because this interesting stuff is going on. So I'm glad you enjoyed that the shed load thing. That was fun.
Now I remember I also wanted to ask Andre a question. So when I prepared my lightning talk for today, I've noticed that, of course, due to time limits, I pulled one that I already had, and I updated it, and I noticed that it's 5 years old and things have changed thanks to the pandemic. And speaking now is so much about being online, and suddenly all the subtle things you can do on stage are taken away from you. So what are your thoughts about speaking online?
Oh, huge topic. So first of all, I just wanted to give you props for the laser thing, because it's like a big thing that people don't realize, many speakers don't realize it. So that's a huge one. I got this. I'm gonna peddle a product. I'm sorry. I got this Logitech presentation, whatever, which puts like a spotlight on the actual screen. So you install it like as a device driver, and it kind of takes over a computer and kind of whatever sends information about you to Russia, or I don't know. But essentially, it puts the spot on your screen, and it allows you to highlight and have the highlight present in the video transmit. You got that right. Awesome. So I think that's a very important point. So there's a big shift when you talk online. So I've been doing a bit of it, and I took inspiration from Jimmy Kimmel, the comedian, like Jimmy Kimmel, the comedian, the guy with the late night whatever show. I'm not sure Jens or Europeans would know. He's a kind of a guy in America who does these talk shows at night. And one time he hosted the Oscars. So during the height of the pandemic in 2020, he hosted the Oscars, and then there was an interview with him. How did you do it? Because it was weird to just be there, kind of being kind of engaging and entertaining and whatever online in front of nobody, literally, right? So he said, I put in my mind that I'm a radio talk show host. And that changed everything for me. And, since then, I decided to do the same for my own talks. Whenever I do this, I'm imagining I'm talking like there may be an audience of 1, 10, a million people, but there's absolutely no direct contact with them right now. So I get to talk and I get to make an impression on them. It's up to me, but it's an indirect way of communication. And that works miracles for your mindset online. Another thing is I noticed there's a lot of fatigue that builds in both the speaker and the audience, and I'm seeing nods among the other speakers. So I presume this is a kind of a common thing. It's just like I'm sitting, and at the end of my talk, my feet are tired. I have no idea why. It's like I've been running a semi-marathon, right? It's just crazy. For some reason, the way psychology works is it's very tiring to do these things online. And what else? I'm going to redirect this because I'm sure other people have their tidbits of experience as well. Chandler, it's your answer right now because I know you have a few thoughts.
Sure. I don't like speaking online. I miss the in-person stuff. But I think some of the things that really helped me was getting a really good camera, actually paying attention to how cameras work, how the lighting is going to work. But one thing that I also really like is trying to think about the camera box, right? And so I like to talk with my hands. You see me give a talk on a stage, like I'm moving around all the time. I'm gesturing. How do I make gestures that are actually visible? Because usually I gesture down here where you can't see my hands. But now I have to have them up by my face, but also not in front, which is that doesn't help. And so trying to think about that. The other thing that works really great for things like panels is a standing desk so that you can move around, stand up, you don't get quite as fatigued. But these kinds of things I think a lot about. It's still not my favorite though. Personally, I like a stage. One of the things people don't think about, I think, is when you have a stage and you're giving a talk on a stage. Sure, it's a stage. There's a lot of pressure. It adds a lot of stress. But you get to get off of the stage at the end of your talk. And no one pays attention to how relaxing it is to step down off the stage and you're not on a stage anymore and you're just hanging out with people. Whereas here, you don't have that. You don't get to step off of your stage. You're always you've got this camera drilling into you, and so you're always on. It doesn't have the same kind of gear shift effect, and so in some ways that's the thing I miss the most.
I just did 2 live conferences, one in April and one in May, after saying I wouldn't do online talks anymore, and then I found that re-energized me enough that I agreed to do an online talk. I find online talks way more draining than in-person ones, and you don't get the same energy back from them. But maybe if we like live in a hybrid world now, it'll be okay. We can alternate between them as long as I get my dopamine once in a while.
Yeah, I think it's fine if but for a lot of speakers, this will be the new normal, right? This is just how the world is now, and so you're not all going to be able to speak on stage on a conference anymore, because that's just how things now work with the pandemic. And I see that there's a raised hand by Claire.
Yeah, so that's just reminded me. So it's only beginning of 2019 when I started speaking at C++ conferences. I had something, approval test library I was contributing to, and we didn't have any documentation, so I decided to write a talk to learn how to use it, basically. What I hadn't accounted for was just how much energy you get from people in the audience. And there were a few people that I'd met before, mainly through Include C++. I didn't necessarily know them, but they sat in the front row and they smiled at me and they made eye contact and they nodded. And if they didn't understand something, they frowned. And it was just gold dust. It gave me energy. It gave me feedback. And that's what I really, really miss from online talks. And so if you're a new speaker and you haven't had the opportunity to speak in person, it might be really frightening, the thought of it. But it turns out that in practice, it genuinely is a friendly community. Chat to a few people in the breaks before your talk and things like that. And you'll find this massive, massive well of support in front of you and really, really helping you out. So it's worth making eye contact with the audience, not just to see if people have got any questions, but for that energy and support and kindness that you'll get back. And it will really, really help you out.
Okay. And let me look at the audience questions. So there's a long way from a freshly born idea to a perfectly practiced ready talk. I'd like to hear from you, what is the best moment on that path to submit a talk?
If ever there was it depends, it's that question. I have a talk that I haven't been able to give yet. I literally sat up in bed at 4 a.m, grabbed my laptop and opened PowerPoint because I could not sleep until I just got some of this out of me. And that was probably the best moment actually on the journey of that talk, because it's really hard to turn it into a talk I can give, but I have to give it somewhere someday. All the way to the far end of the extreme when I did the what do we mean when we say nothing at all, where I was not sure it was a talk until I came off stage after giving it at CPPCon. Okay, yeah, it is a talk. Good. That was landing with people. I'm not making this up. It's that is a real useful thing to have talked about for an hour. Okay, good. Because actually lately all my talks I feel that way, like maybe everyone knows this, or maybe it's no one knows it, not even me. Every step of that journey, though, should be fun. Really. You should like it. It's work, but it's also fun. It's what we do.
Okay, just an aside, I quoted your talk today, that specific talk today, just like a few hours ago. So yes, it was definitely a very good talk. So when I want to kind of answer that question while simultaneously sort of answering also Hannah's question. So they're kind of related. It's sort of like how do you pick what to talk about kind of thing, and when. And I think sometimes you kind of have to leave answering that question to somebody else. You have, like, maybe you have several ideas or you don't know what's interesting. So one of the ways that you can do that is you can ask somebody, like, these are two things I want to talk about. What do you think is interesting? Especially people who know the audience, like the people who tend to go to this thing, like you need to figure out what is interesting to them. But in the end, you might just say, I'm going to submit 2 talks to this conference, and they have to choose. You might want to tell them that you only want to do one out of the 2, or you might end up in an issue where then you get like I think Sai got 4 talks accepted at CPPCon. So but you don't have to make that decision yourself. You can actually give that decision to somebody else.
Yes, that's why I have the voting, and I have speakers actually ask me like, what talk do you want for your conference? I'm like, just like you said, just one thing you really have to be careful about, and something I learned during the pandemic is not to trust the speakers because they're usually biased crowd, and if you think you know the audience of a conference, that's a huge trap to fall into. And that's why I went from having an program committee where basically the same guys every year look at the talks and think what's interesting to them. I asked kind of the audience to do the selection or do a pre-selection, and then we can still, do some fine-tuning, because we'd like to have the talk from Patricia, Kate, or Andre on the conference, even if some people submit really. So I think that the actual question was like, what is the best moment? And I think the best moment for me is always when I have submitted the talk, because that's for me the beginning of the journey. Have in mind that there's not the speaker submitting a talk and they're like, okay, talk is done, let's submit. It's the other way around. We submit ideas and then start often working on the talk to which we envisioned. And sometimes our motivation is to, we want to learn that, and then the pressure is to get the talk ready, and we learn that, and then we are able to present it. And there's very, 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 very many other reasons. But yeah.
I would agree with the room here. So I usually submit talks on an idea level. So I have a title, I have an abstract, I talked with 2 or 3 friends about, and then I just submit it. And I usually like also this voting in conference these days. So if people choose one of my, 2 or 3 ideas, then I will work it out in the 1 month to the conference. That's usually the best way for me. So of course, I could work out 3 full talks before I submit it, but I think it's better to have just more ideas and then have the people choose what will be presented in the end, and only work on that.
I have another pro tip that I remembered now. So my first year when I was speaking, I submitted talks to 4 conferences, and then I thought I had to give like a new talk at every conference. So I submitted 4 different talks to 4 different conferences, and they all got accepted. And so don't do that. You can do the same talk again. It's fine. Just like the audiences are often like totally different. And if somebody by chance have seen your talk, it's often multiple tracks. It's fine. They'll go see something else. So because you haven't like, optimistically for me, and I've been hearing this from lots of speakers, like I will spend about an hour per minute of talk, at least. And that's probably maybe twice that. So you have to ration your time. If you're going to spend 2 weeks full-time job making a talk, you don't want to do that like 7 or 8 times throughout the year, because you're going to struggle having to do your like day job. So you can reuse your talk. You can also change it up, like refresh it, but it's fine to do the same type talk multiple times. So be careful.
I would like to I would like to respond actually to that as well. That's how I ended up doing 2 talks of an hour and a half in CPP now for being there the first time this year, which is very stressful. But that was awesome. That was really fun. But I just want to address the previous topic on speaking online. So it's sort of a meta comment. It's not a direct answer to the question, but I've noticed since I'm also involved in organizing our meetup group, that speaking online is really helpful for new speakers, which is awesome. I gave my first talk in 2019. I would probably be very happy to give it online instead of in front of an audience, because for a new speaker, I think it can be a great, a half step towards giving a talk, and that's an awesome thing. So I try to use this online platform to encourage people that usually wouldn't have the courage to go on stage. So that's an awesome upside.
Yeah, I think that's also a point I probably want to make. I got slightly annoyed at one moment last year at Meeting Embedded, because there was a speaker we had, a special speaker, but I heard a dog bark in the background. I was like, oh. But then suddenly it made click in my head, and I was like, wait a minute. This is a speaker from Africa, and I just heard a dog bark in Africa. And this is what we would never get to otherwise without having those online events, because there's so many people who are not able to travel to anywhere and get their talks approved, because maybe they're not that proficient in English, and that will not get you promoted by the committee, and other ways, like that they don't think that traveling that far is an option for them or other people. So I think that the whole speaking online thing is new, and it will find its ways. But it's also a huge chance to include folks which are either not able to get a visa to travel. Be it, even like you could have a person speak remote from the city where you're in, because they don't want to go to the conference for health reasons, or maybe they cannot because they have kids, or any other reason. It just opens a whole new door for us to hear new voices, and that's actually really awesome.
I agree. That's why I really work hard to keep our meetup also at least partially online, and I agree it's really a great opportunity.
Yeah, for me, one unsolved question remains a little bit. So beyond speaking online, how do we get people motivated to participate more in an online setting? So a lot of conferences have like really cool environments like GatherTown or other things where you can walk around and talk to people, but only a few people use it actively. And if you are like in an in-person conference, there's much more exchange and talking to people. And this has gone away a little bit in the online setting. And I don't know if we have found a way yet to motivate people more in an online setting to interact with one another.
I hate GatherTown. I don't like playing conference online. That's why I did not choose GatherTown last year, even if they had the offer of, book your conference date with us and you get a 70% discount. Trust me, that was the best offer in town. You would not be able to get anything cheaper than GatherTown last year. But what I wanted to have is like a website where the conference is on, where people can click on. And yeah, part of the online experience is that people are less online, and also speakers are less accessible. But that's why I think that like purely going online is not a thing which will be happen. We will return to on-site conferences. But on the other hand, I run a user group which is only online and always will stay online. And we have one format, which is, some of you already saw that, the lounge. And there we have an event called Tool Fair. And if you've written a book, have a tool or have a project and just want to host a table for an evening, come host a table. And people just join your table and have a conversation. And yeah, so we had Guy present the book Kate co-wrote with him. And I've seen some other book authors come. We had some companies go there. And we also have a job fair if you're looking for a job, that's also kind of working out. And I'm looking for other formats or kind of other things to do there. I've been thinking about presenting proposals there in that format, just having various tables with proposals, but I wouldn't need proposal authors to kind of volunteer for such an evening. So that's probably something which we do in the future.
I wanted to make two brief comments. One, I definitely think that we're headed towards both, not all online, not all virtual, but just a lot of both. But other thing, just going back to something that Inbal mentioned about people who and actually something Andre mentioned in his talk about being confident. Something I just want people to realize that I can't speak for the other speakers here, but I hope folks realize that like I'm terrified when I'm presenting. Like completely terrified, and even getting ready to present. Like Kate says, you should enjoy every minute of it. Kate, I applaud that you do. Every minute leading up to a talk for me is like grueling and awful and it's stressful. But I think a lot of people have this impression that it's like easy once you've like done a bunch of talks. And if you're good at it, it's like, oh yeah, it's just no big deal. It is a big deal, and like it is all fake. Every indication of confidence when talking is 100% fake, at least from my part. And I mention this for two reasons. One, don't feel bad if you don't have high confidence. That's actually normal. And two, you can fake it, and you should. And like that's not a bug. That's a feature, right? I just
totally
want people
moral.
to take that into their heads.
Yeah. It's totally moral. It's okay to fake. There's nothing wrong about it. It's like totally fine. Just fake it. Even if you don't make it, just fake it.
One of the things I've been doing a lot lately is to challenge the, I threw these slides together on the plane narrative, along with the demo where the speaker says out loud with their mouth, why don't we try this out? Let's see. I think I'll make a rectangle here. Like they're just thinking of it on the fly. And it's a lie. They always make a rectangle every time they do that demo. Every time. I have literally stood in the back of the room with the 17-page demo script, making sure the speaker isn't going off target when they were a new speaker in a corporate situation. And I know exactly what they're going to do, but they're pretending that they're making it up. And I think we do everyone a disservice when we do that. Like, I practice my stuff. Everyone who talked about demos and talks all said, you got to practice. We're like, somehow leave the impression with newbies that like when you're a natural, you can just get up and yabber for an hour and a half and hit your time exactly and all your demos work, but you made it up that morning. No, it is work.
I have a thing that I used in the beginning, and it's easier for me to talk now than the first few times. I was like, so there is like, I'm still like destroyed. Like before, like I can't watch other talks, or I do watch other talks, but like there's like a whole section of my brain that just can't concentrate until I'm done. So when I'm done, you can't talk to me because my brain is, there's like nothing there. It's like static. It's like I have no brain anymore. But I had a trick on like getting over the nervousness when I'm on stage, and it's very simple. I'm a nerd. So if I talk about something that I find interesting, I forget about the whole thing and I get like all excited about it. But it doesn't help. It doesn't help with the beginning. So that's where I'm still failing like the Andre test, because I don't know. I don't know my name. I don't know how to say hello. I'm like, there's like a 30 second, the magic 30 seconds. It doesn't work. And then I'm also like the last part is like hanging up. I don't know how to hang up either. So I'm bad at the Kate thing, So it's like, but the middle part, if you're really excited about the thing or you find it really interesting, you can kind of forget that you're on stage and you're just getting really excited about the thing. And I use that to kind of bridge that terribleness. And today it's easier than previously, but it's a tip that I used a lot. So talk about something, and I think who was it that said that? Maybe it was Tina who said, talk about something you're excited about, because that makes it easier.
Awesome. The flip side of that is don't do mercenary talks. I spoke to a speaker once, and he was advocating some technology, and he said, he told me, like, in confidence, I just hate that technology. It's like terrible. And of course the talk wasn't that great because, and he would be the first to admit, don't do mercenary talks. If you're excited about something, just do it. Otherwise, just decline them. It's okay to decline an invitation. It's totally fine. I have nothing. I have no, subject. Good. I don't have anything. Oh, and by the way, so in relation to was that the first speaker, right? So she said, don't find things. All right. So there's this interesting phenomenon. If it starts sounding completely trivial to you, it means you have the competence. Like if you like when you go in grad school or projects in another grad school, whenever you have something interesting and look into it a lot, it becomes like, oh, everybody knows this because I know so much about it. So that's a good sign that, I know so much, but actually it may be trivial. Actually, that's a good sign that you have accumulated a bunch of expertise in that particular thing.
I just want to say I've yet learned to say no during my career. I don't know if that's like for talks or organizing stuff or whatever. I think it brought me to a good place, but I might need to learn.
Imba, yeah. I saw your talks. You're far from falling into that extreme of giving like mercenary talks. You're not there by any means. So don't worry about it. Like, there's absolutely no reason.
That's a good time to say that Andre have gave me my Andre and Kate and John. I think, yeah. I got my first time speaker workshop from them, so thank you. It was awesome. It was really inspiring. And Kate,
you're still
Kate and Andre, you're still.
I remember. It was awesome. Yeah.
You're still people that I inspire to be able to speak as, so at some point. Thank you.
I think all speakers want to help other people become speakers. I think we all would love to have like a little line of ducklings behind us. I remember pushing someone to do a talk and watching him, Chandler mentioned, coming down off the stage, walking those 3 steps, and he had this look on his face, which I knew. It was like, I didn't die. It wasn't awful. I think they liked it. And I went, oh, he is hooked. He is one of us now. That moment, as you come down those steps and it was okay, you keep coming back for more of that. And we all want to help other people join that club. And you do not have to poke us very hard before we will drown you in help to join that club.
And it's like Amway, multi-level marketing. Everybody wants to, inspire others to do the same.
Yeah. And I think you don't have to be like the most confident and extrovert person in the world to do it. Yeah. So I'm by far not a confident person, and I enjoy giving talks, and I also come to enjoy talks where things go off script in the middle. Yeah. So you prepare and you think you have everything written out very well, but there will always be like 20 people in the room who are way smarter than you and spot mistakes and start discussions. And that can also be a lot of fun. And this can also be a very good talk if somebody points out that something is very wrong, what you just talked about. And I enjoyed these talks as well. So I think confidence, can be a thing for some people. But for me, it's like I have an idea I love. I want to talk about it. And if someone knows more about that or corrects me and this becomes a big discussion, also a fun talk.
I just had a bit of a flashback to a series of articles that Fred Tungo wrote a couple of years ago, and I've posted a link in reply to Andre's question in the Q&A, and I've also posted it in the main chat as well. I haven't managed to find a link to just the 4, I found a search that shows them in various different ways. But
I've
a very, very good series of articles. Highly recommended.
So I have to Hendrix's thing. So people don't believe this about me, but people who know me very well know that I'm extremely socially awkward. But the thing is, when you're on stage, it's not a dialogue. So a lot of the socially awkwardness of a personal interaction where you have to figure out what to say when a person said something and have like the appropriate pause or know when to talk and all of those things, or you don't have to, you have, and if you get really nervous, like especially in the beginning where I got very nervous, I forget what I wanted to say. And so a lot of people comment on my slides. I have lots of pictures and stuff, but I'm also very dyslexic. And when I get nervous, my dyslexia gets really bad. And so I can actually get to the point where I can't read when I'm very nervous. And so the reason why I have like all of the pictures and stuff is because I look at the pictures and then I remember what I was going to say here. So I don't have to read the text. I can just look at it and go like, oh yes, this is the part where I do say the thing. And if I lose my way, I use the slides to remember where I was. So I kind of use it as like a crutch. But at the same time, it became like a thing where people remember my slides because of all the pictures. But the pictures were initially for me to not get lost, or when I get lost, to find my way again. So try to figure out like what you need to do that. And even if you're socially awkward in a social situation, you might still be able to do a talk because it's not a social situation.
You know, the other thing, Claire talked about how audiences are kind, and Andre talked about it's your stage and they assume you know what you're doing. The pauses, Patricia, in deconstructing privilege are amazingly great. And I came up and I remember I told you this after talk. I'm like, that's some of the best silence I've ever seen. And you're like, I was trying to get my composure back so I could keep talking. But that's not how it comes to the audience. To the audience, it comes like, let that sink in. You think about what I just said. This is important. Inside your brain, it's apparently very different. But that
I was so close to crying. And so every time I had the pause was me just taking a breath so I wouldn't cry, because I hate crying in front of people. So all of the pauses was because that was a really, really scary talk to do. And a talk I never really wanted to do. And the only reason why I did it was just because I didn't want somebody else to do it.
In that way, though, the pauses were accurate, right? Because what they signaled was, this is a super emotional moment. Sit in this.
Yes.
But and they were so powerful. It worked.
Yeah. But I didn't experience it that way. And that's also that that's one of the things that I think Andres mentioned, like, watch videos of your talk, because especially if you wait a while, so you don't remember what it's not that close, you wait like a few months and then you watch the video, then the way it looks is totally different than how it felt. So one of the things I would say is to not say how you feel. Like, don't say I'm really nervous right now, because probably people can't tell. It's like, so don't say how you feel, even though you feel it's like super obvious, like everybody can tell, because most likely they can't. So just continue, and just no matter how you feel, because how it looks afterwards for some reason is totally different than how it felt doing it.
I totally agree, and I'm always I don't watch my talks a lot because it's hard, but I'm always really surprised that it wasn't a disaster. And just one more thing that I wanted to say, I always envy the audience that they can actually read code, because when I give talks, I mean, I totally relate with what Patricia has said. It's so hard to focus and like with the stress and everything, so hard to read.
Yeah, that segues into a point that like Patricia brought up with her dyslexia reaction, and kind of gets worse during a talk. How they say the camera adds 10 pounds. For me, that's like 20, but that's a different topic. So it's not only that, but the camera decreases your IQ by 25%. It's like you're acting in an inebriated state. You're partially like incapable of thinking. I remember during one talk, I had to convert like from meters to feet. I couldn't do it. I just ask like, what's 14 times 6 in the middle of a talk, a speaker? They can't do it. They just can't do it, right? You're in a state of impairment, so you gotta account for that. So it's really a state of high stress and impairment, and very difficult to keep your wits together during.
It's a good thing the past you have created the slides to help you with that.
Exactly. So the slides are good. Look at cats. Slides are a good, Hansel and Gretel, the breadcrumbs to kind of remind you of where you go and where you are and when you were supposed to go. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's good advice to not do math on stream or in a talk,
I was just mulling over what Kate said earlier about there are lots of speakers who are keen to help other speakers get going, and you may not know this, but a number of conferences have a support mechanism, especially for new speakers, but not just for new speakers. So they will invite you to send any proposal in before the deadline, and then people can give you feedback and help you improve the proposal. And it turns out that's a fantastic way to get feedback to even start speaking. And then, I first took advantage of it for CPPCon, so I think that was my third conference talk. I had one person who was kind of my mentor, and it made a huge difference just from sharing the slides and just a little bit of online conversation. Just that perspective from someone who wasn't really close to what I was talking about. And then as a bonus, it was someone that I recognized when I went to the conference. It was another person to talk to as well. So, if you're thinking about speaking and you don't have colleagues or friends who can give you a hand, then maybe look for a conference that provides that sort of service. And thank you to those experienced speakers who do give their time to help other speakers out. It's really appreciated.
So I was also thinking about the question from Jan. I don't know how to say your last name. I'm going to go with Norwegian pronunciations. It's going to be Bort. Because Jan asks, because we're not speaking in one message. We're kind of saying things that contradict each other, and so Andre spoke about this in his talk, that make sure that you know what you're going, like the material or the area really, really well. And then I think Tina said, you can challenge yourself and try to talk about something you don't know very well. And as you're doing the talk, you're going to get into the material. And I'll even like make it worse and make like a third perspective. And that is that you as an individual can make a twist on something that somebody else might know better than you. So like Andre said, there might be somebody in the audience that knows this specific topic better than you, but you might have a unique perspective. So maybe you have experience with this thing in a specific context. And that makes that rendering of that idea unique to you. And so it doesn't have to be that you have to be the world expert, or except for Andre. Andre also always has to be the world expert. So I'm sorry, but you're on a pedestal. It's far down. You can only disappoint, basically. But for the rest of us mortals, it's you can bring your own personal twist on something that is unique to you, and that makes it special, and that makes you the expert because you're you, and so nobody else is you. So that's a kind of a way, I don't know, to balance it or make it worse, but to those perspectives.
So I'll try and actually bridge the gap here some. I think that one of the key things here is, to Andre's point, you do have to develop a certain level of just competence to carry a talk forward. But the key thing to realize is that doesn't actually have to be the competence you had when you started the talk. It has to be the competence you have when you give the talk. And you can always scope down or narrow your talk so that you can kind of be sure that you've gotten the competence for your talk. You don't have to have that level of competence for everything around your talk, right? And so to what Patricia said, right? Pick your idea, your key insight, and then you're going to be a super competent speaker on that insight because it's yours. Own that, steer into that so that you're even more competent by being closer aligned to your unique insight, right? Because the greater the gap you can get there, the greater your kind of competence covers the subject of your talk, the better you can give that talk. But you don't have to do it by only talking about really simple stuff or waiting until you feel like you've got the wizard hat or whatever. No. You don't have to do that. You can just pick the topic and then it fits, right? And then it all comes together. And it's still going to be super valuable to everyone else.
Awesome.
Sorry.
A good litmus test.
I just went to 2 talks were how we did blah. That person is a total expert on that. They may not have done blah correctly, but their talk was accurate. They came and told us how they did the thing. And you will meet that bar. In fact, who knows more?
One thing that is a danger, if you are you're an expert in a topic, is that, and I think Andre also mentioned that, or someone mentioned that, that you think that everybody else knows what you know, and so when you are that super expert in something, you can easily make a talk that nobody understands. Because nobody is at that level, so you're totally talking over everybody's heads. So that is the danger of being super expert in your topic. You kind of have to run it by other people so that they can ask you the questions. I don't understand this bit, or what is this word? Or they have to give you that feedback because you can't really relate really well to the level that you need to be at to communicate the topic. And so that's also, there's also a danger that way, kind of.
I have to run away.
Replies a bit. Oh,
it's so you all are so awesome. This has been great fun. But keep it going.
Chandler, and
great seeing you.
So I think when we're talking about this topic, always have in mind what role you have to fill. And I think that it's extreme. You always should know that it's okay to say on stage that you don't know. Okay? Because somebody will ask you a question you don't know. And trying to explain something on stage you are not sure about is really bad. But on the other hand, I agree with what was Andre said, but on the other hand, Andre probably is also giving talks with the expectation that he is the expert and that he has to answer every question. And I remember talking to Scott Myers, and he's like, everyone thinks that I'm the expert and that I know all my books and all the standard and that all that knowledge came from me. But in truth, I know who to ask about something, and all of that is a big network of people behind me, and I'm the guy who writes it down and has questions and asks people, or sometimes, and so don't be afraid of admitting that you don't know something or that is not your area of expertise. And on the other hand, when you are preparing a talk, you look up a lot of things and you get more confident, and you should reach, of course, the level of confidence to present your slides, of course. So that's a particular truth in there.
Unrelated, Jens, is there going to be a recording of this very panel and the talks that we had?
Yes.
I got a couple of questions. Okay, awesome.
I'm recording this panel, which is a bit experimental because I've never recorded this tool, this setting. So I will see what the recording looks like, how it sounds, and I probably then do some editing and record, do that and put it on YouTube later.
Thanks. So I need to take off now. Thank you very much, everybody, for
thank you for coming.
Awesome interaction. This was really, really, really nice. I mean, I hated my own talk, but I loved everybody else's. So thank you. Bye, and Kate,
bye.
Bye.
Andre.
Cheers. Myself to the door, okay?
Bye.
So I'm going to talk about Andre now. He's gone. I was going to say this with him here. So I attended his training that Kate was also one of the trainers on at CPPCon in 2019, and it was really very, very worthwhile. I possibly made the mistake of buying a ticket because I really wanted to do it, and then finding out that speakers, if there was space, were able to attend free. But it was okay. I'm glad I spent the money. But it really stuck with me, Andrew's comment about something like, if somebody asks you a question and the answer's I don't know, then maybe you haven't succeeded. And referring back to earlier comments about his level of expertise. But from my perspective, some of the best things I've learned about topics that I've talked about has been questions that people have asked and I haven't known the answer. And sometimes someone else in the audience will chime in, and other times somebody watches the video and lets me know. And those insights, it was actually worth spending all the time writing a talk on a topic I was interested in anyway, for the extra things that I didn't even know that I didn't know, but I learned about them directly, sometimes over the following few years. Very occasionally I'll get a comment because of a video on YouTube. So I really, really strongly think that it's very okay to be asked an interesting, kind question that's a genuine one, not a point scoring one, because you can gain so much from it.
And sometimes you can just ask the audience. So if somebody asks you a question and you go, I'm not sure about the answer, is there someone here? And especially at a C++ audience, it's like there's probably the person who wrote the paper on that, and they're probably here. Or somebody who reviewed the paper. So and then when somebody said, "Oh, this is the answer," and then you just repeat the answer, and then you look smart. It's like yes, this person over here said the answer, and now I said it on YouTube, so now I sound smart.
I was in a talk. I think it was CPPCon, but it could have been the predecessor Going Native, and someone asked a question, and the speaker didn't know. And laptops started flipping open. There were multiple people who had the standard on their laptops in the room.
Yeah.
Got the answer, and then, like you say, the speaker repeated it. But I'm just thinking, look how many people have the standard on their laptop. I have found my people.
So there is a story which I only heard because I did not attend that talk. And that was prior to when C++ Now was still BoostCon. And they had a guy present on the C++ exception model. And this guy was, had prepared his talk and got so confident that he would now tell the experts what's wrong with that. And so he started his talk, but there's like the tradition of debating during a talk at C++ Now and BoostCon. And what is his name? One of the founders of Boost was in the audience, which is also the main author and kind of the brain behind this exception model, which, by the way, is right. And so this evolved into this guy being lectured by the author why the things he has... No, it wasn't Herb. It was... Herb is not connected to Boost, by the way. No one also not Scott.
Not Beam and Doors?
No. I'm bad with names. He works for Sean now.
Dave Abrams?
Right, Dave Abrams.
Mm-hmm.
Dave Abrams has been known to debate people in talks and to be quite knowledgeable about the standard. And so this guy came to basically the conference from Dave and gave a talk about what's wrong with this thing that we have on the standard, which was like debated forever, probably also on the standard. So he had, from the moment he started, basically the whole room against him, and he didn't realize it. And he was so overconfident that he submitted the talk, prepared, came there, and I don't even know if it's published, but I heard it was like legendarily that there was just a debate about this. And so if you're building up confidence, also try to not lose the grounding and make sure that actually what you're confident about is right.
I have not so that bad, but one thing that I've seen is if people who go and say, I'm going to do a talk about programming language for X programmers, and so you're doing that at the X programmers conference, and then you tell them, you spend a large part of your talk talking about how terrible their programming language is. So I've seen this done multiple times. And so it has ended up in one specific piece of advice is don't insult your audience. And because these people they chose to come to your talk. They have now dedicated, 60 minutes or 90 minutes of their life to sit and listen to you talk. Be nice to them. And being nice to them also extends beyond like don't insult them, but also be nice to them, but also try not to waste their time. They it's very hard for them to leave. Like in a virtual conference is easier, but in a physical conference you kind of made the decision to sit in this row and you're kind of trapped here now. So make sure that you understand that all of these people have altogether dedicated like weeks of time combined to listen to what you have to say and try to respect that.
We do have a question about humor, which I think is interesting. What would be some pointers on using humor during the talk? Some speakers like Andre insert many jokes during the talk. Tony Van Aert even made a whole talk in verse. But at the same time, it feels risky and easy to go wrong and just not hit the right key.
So I guess I can't talk about an example here, be specific, but be really, really mindful of the code of conduct with any humour. Avoid visual humour that could be offensive, could make people feel uncomfortable. Just don't do it. You can't know other people's lives and experiences, and what might seem like an innocent joke to you about, some historical thing or something like that may have a real, might kind of be a visceral pounding in the chest to someone who has a bad life experience or a different cultural background. So be sensitive. If you really think your joke is funny, try it out on other people. And if I could go back in time in the situation that I'm thinking of, I actually would have asked a question at the end to try and raise awareness of that particular speaker, about try and get them to think about the impact that they would have on other people by what some of the audience thought was a very funny talk. So sorry, that may not be the answer that you want, but that's quite a strong memory for me.
I think you're totally right, Claire. I just had this situation a week ago, where someone used like a really offensive analogy. They were talking about a particular technique being given to a particular set of programmers, and they said it was like giving a razor blade to a baby. It's like, there is nothing good about this analogy. Like, first of all, you called those programmers babies. You made us all imagine something gross. What's wrong with you? You didn't, like, this wasn't even needed. You just happened to throw that out as an aside while you were discussing the history of the feature, right? The people who do it well, they do it so gently. I don't think it's a coincidence that Tony's so good at it and he's Canadian. Canadians are famous for being able to be funny without being cruel, or at least you don't think we're being cruel at the time. In case of doubt, don't. If you're like, this joke is kind of borderline, should I go with it? No. I don't have to hear the joke. No. That's my advice.
Yeah, Andre has talked about like having his one of the things that inspires him is stand-up comedians. But again, Andre is like over in the showmanship kind of category of speakers. And for me, I'm not funny. If I'm funny, it's not planned. Like it's an accident. But I'm very, like, a part of my culture is self-deprecating humor. So if I do like joke about things, I will do that constantly. I will joke about myself. Because it's not a personality trait, it's a cultural trait, but it means it happens all the time. But it's not intentional. I never have intentional jokes, but I might, like, because of Andre, I went to the training that Claire talked about as well, with Andre and with Kate, and Andre had like a big focus on the beginning, which I find very hard. And one of the things that he talked about is having some kind of story or something to start with. And so you can have a story, make it kind of personal, do something, and then you could have like some kind of funny thing. But I would say even self-deprecating humor can hit other people if they relate to you in that aspect.
Yeah.
Right? So but at the same time, it's super hard to, like, when you're on stage, your brain doesn't work properly, and you will do and say things that you are going to cringe over later, or just listening to yourself. Like sometimes I listen to like if I'm going to do a talk again, I will listen to myself having done it in the past, and half of the time I'm shaking my head going like, Patricia, stop it. No, stop. No laughing. No, you said it again. You did the thing. Don't do the thing. It's very, even if I know it, I will still do it again because I'm nervous and it just comes out. So yeah, I would say it's hard to be intentionally funny unless you're like, you have that stand-up comedy thing in you, and come on, we've almost no stand-up comedy is funny anymore. It basically is about like kicking somebody else. So be careful about like humor,
especially when you start speaking, because if someone like Andre uses a joke on stage, he can be very sure that he nails it. But imagine trying to tell a joke and, starting to laugh before you're done with a joke, or not getting the intonation right, and suddenly the sort of thing, it gets like really weird, and it will also like draw you off from your speaking mode. And there's so many things that can go wrong, even if the joke fits. You can go for like a visual joke when you want to make a point. Like there's some comics on the web which like really resonate maybe with the topic you have. Like I had this talk about burnout, and I wanted to communicate that I'm not a doctor. And there's this funny sign from the Simpsons doctor where they're like basically, and I was like, this is kind of my generation, Simpsons, they understand it. It's not a real doctor. And the sign says, if I kill you, you don't pay. And I was like, this kind of resonates for me with this slide. So like, I'm giving this talk, but please understand this is not like the 100% the advice from a doctor. So if you find yourself in this talk, then please understand that you might want to see a doctor and get professional advice. And that is not the intention of the talk, to give you professional advice. And on the other hand, of course, it's with keynotes, I think if a keynote speaker doesn't offend like someone in the room, they didn't do their job well, because they try to do everyone okay, but that's not what a keynote should be. But on the other hand, they should not insult anyone. So doing a joke on stage. The other thing I've been watching in the last decade is, especially with, I don't want to say boomers, but with older speakers, they often have a different kind of humor than the younger part of our audience. And also that is true for younger speakers, which might not have the confidence to tell a joke on stage, but they might, just have the confidence to do it. Then it's a joke which is funny for their peer group, but everyone else is like more like, and I think that's the worst part which can happen is you tell the funny joke and no one laughs.
Christine asked around like, how do you know kind of what is offensive and not offensive, and you don't. Like, you are a person, we are raised in cultures that have all sorts of bias and nastiness, and we've been steeped in that stuff since we were born. So we are all full of bias and weirdness and jokes we laughed at 10 years ago that we don't laugh at anymore. We all have issues to deal with. So the only thing we can do is, when someone tells you that thing that you said that hurt me, to take that to heart and say, oh, wow, and learn and try to do better, and not become like defensive and blah, blah, blah. And, just believe people when they tell you that it hurt them, and then just try to grow. And it's painful and it's hard. And then you watch maybe or read something that you've done in the past, or at 3:00 in the morning, you remember that thing that you said to somebody 20 years ago. And but it is a process. We're people, and the only way we're going to grow is acknowledge our mistakes and try to do better. Because if not, we're just going to end up being the same ignorant person for the rest of our lives. So we have to kind of live in the discomfort of trying to unlearn stuff that we've had pushed into us since we were babies.
I completely agree. And I just want to say, because I'm not a native English speaker, for example, for me, I used to use the word guys for a group of people, and I was just not aware of the context. I was completely oblivion to that. And then someone, a very nice girl, came to me and told me, I think it was in a CPPCon 19 probably, that this word have context. And I've been really, really trying very hard to avoid this word and use folks or other words, because it's important to me to not, I am, the international C++ community is important to me, and I am there to communicate, and I'm not there to communicate badly. So I think, just to bring the other side, or to say that it's okay to learn, and I agree with Patricia. We should definitely try to do that, and keep in mind we're all, like, I think a lot of us is from different cultures and so on. So yeah.
I have kind of building on that of speaking English as but not having it as your first language. There's so many nuances and cultural subtexts and things that you don't know as a non-native speaker, and people are often very self-conscious about their accents. But I have the opposite problem, and so I want to point out that having an accent can be a good thing, because if you have an accent, you are signaling to the listener that this is not my first language. if you have a very slight accent, people will expect much higher competency in cultural issues and subtext and nuances to words, and you are still not a native speaker, but they will expect so much more of you. And so that's something that I struggle with, because like Imbal, it's not my native language, and there are lots of things that I don't know. And so I had, this happened a few years ago, where some native speakers mentioned several. I used Twitter to learn about other people, and so several people talked about the word females, that they felt that this was a very negative word, and I didn't understand, like, what is the difference? Because for me, this is not. I don't have the gut feeling about words that you have as a native speaker, that you have in your own language. That you can say this word feels right or it feels wrong. I don't have that gut feeling about things. And so I just asked on Twitter. I asked, people have said this, I don't understand. Why? Can you explain it to me? And then and lots of people explained to me. And then I could try to relate it to my own language. And in my own language, we also have a way of describing gender, but applying it to animals. And I would not use those kinds of words for people. So I could do that one. Also, a bunch of people said it's like in Star Trek with the Ferengi when they say females. And I hadn't watched Star Trek, but I had a whole pandemic to watch Star Trek. but also people also explained to me that there's a difference between using it as an adjective to say a female programmer, or using it as a noun to say a female, and that also was a very good distinction for me. So it's okay to not know things, and you can ask people. Especially if you have trust with people, because sometimes people were like, they think when you ask a question, you're actually you're just asking questions, but you're just kind of trolling them. But if they trust you and you ask it in good faith and people believe you, lots of people will help you to figure out the distinction. Because for me, that was a word that I struggled with. Yeah.
So I just learned, so thank you.
It really is a gift if someone will come and tell you that joke, that little aside, the particular adjective, you got to explain it so your girlfriend can understand it. You think it's natural and simple, and then someone tells you it's not, then that's a gift. And we've probably all had someone take us aside for a moment like that at some point. And when I look back on those moments, I feel grateful that someone was brave enough to come and say, hey, maybe you didn't even notice, but, and that someone will do that. You may not feel like saying thank you in the moment because you feel defensive. You feel like, I didn't intend to hurt anyone, so therefore I obviously didn't. But, you have been given a gift of a piece of knowledge that is not issued to us at birth. And that XKCD about you're one of the 10,000 for today, like it might not be Diet Coke and Mentos. It might be not saying guys. Like you're one of the people who's going to learn that hurts some people and why and what to do about it instead. And I don't feel bad that you didn't know before. I'm delighted to be the person who gets to tell you.
And I completely agree.
Yeah. And the thing about saying thank you, that's one of the things that I think is easier online. Like if someone DMs you on Twitter and they say the thing that you said in this tweet, something, it's sufficiently asynchronous that you can force you can get a habit of saying thank you even before you can get there. Like you're still in the, oh my God, I messed up. You saw me mess up. I feel terrible. I feel like defending myself. All of those feelings that is natural and you're going to go through, you can actually say thank you and then work out the feelings later. So
let's do that. Because I want to say thank you to all that are, still here and those who already left. this room is going to time out in 3 minutes, so we can keep talking a bit here. But I would say then if you want to stay around, be my guest. We can have that conversation for another hour in the lounge. And I feel like organizing today was really nice. And there was actually one question which I remember from Jonathan. I don't know if Jonathan still is here. He was asking, like, how did we manage that we didn't overlap so much? And I organized this, and I kind of got the right talks, I guess. It's something where I, as with the view on lightning talks, don't care so much about. I think, like, if we want to reinforce a good point and people like do 2 different talks on the same topic from 2 different views, we're probably going to learn a lot more from that than when we just tell someone to pick a different topic. And so I did care a lot for that people choose their topics and speak about what they're passionate about, that we get a lot of things covered. And as those lightning talks are also going to end up in YouTube, it does not matter if you heard something twice today, because the main audience on YouTube will maybe only hear it once.
So I'm sorry, my headphones got drained from electricity, but I hope you can hear me. I just wanted to say, so to what Patricia has said, and I agree. I mean, I'm in this business, I think, because I'm very curious. I love learning new things. I just want to say that the experience of learning new things, cultural wise, is really awesome for me, at least. I mean, it's not just, the opportunity to work with people from abroad is one of the things I love the most about C++. And this is awesome, both on the technical level and also on the cultural level. So yeah, I totally look at it as an opportunity.
Brilliant. It's been a really fun evening. Thank you very much indeed for organising it, Jens. Really, really good.
Yes.
Thank you. That was awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming forward and volunteering. And funnily, I had the problem to get male speakers for tonight because there was already so many women volunteering. I didn't have to worry about that. So diversity-wise, this evening has really been a win. And I see Kate is trying to join again for the last 15 seconds, but she didn't get through. Okay. So I guess we're going to go to the lounge and then...
Good night.
Seconds. Okay. Everybody wave and smile.
Bye-bye.
That was really...
Bye-bye.